Hey everyone. Just wanted to do a video on more of a personal level, telling a story. I mentioned in my last video with the package I got from Memphis Vinyl Gym and the Misses that I was going to maybe do that. And then after answering those comments that people responded to, which thank you by the way, and I just got inspired to decide and get off my behind and go sit down and tell you guys about this, and hoping that maybe you can just minister to some of you in some way and just give you guys an idea of, you know, how things work out in life, really. So, I'm in a community called Dust, which is the young adult congregation, young adult ministry that me and Mary attend to within our church. So as opposed to just the Sunday services, we go to that one on Tuesday nights. And it's been on the hearts of my pastors, my pastor Teddy and his wife, who's also the pastor, and for the last year or so or more, to sort of put this thing together that we're doing right now. It's called The Invitation. Just sort of getting our, speaking the word of Jesus out to people in the streets of Charlotte. And we've had it for 2 weeks so far. And each week, my pastor is speaking on the kingdom, on a particular sermon he wants to, whatever the Spirit's leading him to speak on. And after that, we're having one night we're having the first week we had root beer floats. Second week we had cookies and milk. This week we're having something different like popsicles, and then we're ending the fourth week with this big, huge dinner made by a friend of mine who's a really good cook. So anyway, it's a big deal for us, and we've had some people, newer faces. We're filling the house up. Normally we're like 80 to 100 on average, consistent people, and it's just it doesn't really matter to us. If we have one new person or 20 new people or none, I mean, as long as we know, it was just on our hearts that the Lord just wanted us just to speak to people and let them know about what we're doing, and obviously about God overall. And so, we have these handwritten invitations that are all, I'm going to be honest with you, I only did one of them at one point. I'm not always around when they're doing them, but we have handwritten invitations that are being written, and each time we have a service, they're given out to everyone who's there so that they can hand them out to somewhere in the streets of Charlotte to strangers for the following week, for the next week. So, I've had some I've given out to people, and I just felt like some of them were just off. They just, the Spirit wasn't really leading me as much to give it to that particular person, and I wasn't really feeling it, that necessarily that was where I was supposed to go. But, I gave it to this girl at Cookout who was a sweetheart, and she was funny, and I said, hey, you should come. But I think it's sort of, the people who you can tell who are in need, and who are not in the best place in their lives are the ones that you want to try to help and administer and try to minister to. Last week, well, let me show you how this course was, how the course ran. Last week, when I left work on a Tuesday afternoon, the day of Dust, I've been carrying the invitations in my pocket when I'm walking up and down the streets of Charlotte to my job. And so while I'm doing that, when I leave work, I usually walk down the one main street, Trade Street, every single day. And then this past Tuesday was the first time that, for other circumstances, that I was looking into restaurants and things like that for something else I had to go do. It led me where I ended up being in a different area of the streets, and I saw 5th Street, and I said, oh, you know what? My car is parked between Trade and 5th. I never walk down 5th. Let's walk down 5th Street and we'll see what that's about today. So I walked down 5th Street, and I'm on the left-hand side, and I'm walking by, and I turn to my right, and I see this kid who sort of looks like he's in his, early 20s. He looks a little younger, looks younger than me. And I go ahead, and I keep walking past him. I got my headphones on. And as I'm walking past him, the moment I start walking past him, I think to myself, because we made some eye contact briefly, I think to myself, I'm like, you know what? I should have given the invitation to him. And I felt it, right? And I kept walking. And then I see there's a First Presbyterian Church of Charlotte, which is a really old church in the late 1700s. And across the street is a cemetery that you can actually walk in that has the old Civil War era heroes from Charlotte. So it's sort of like a pathway. You can walk along the cemetery, walk in and out. It's like a site. So I decided, oh, okay, let me check this out. So I cross the street, I walk in there, and I'm looking through, and you know how they have those big tombs that are like not, tombs, not a headstone, but the big tombs that are above ground. And I'm looking around, I'm looking this here and there, and I see this Bible that is just laying there, all scuffed up and dirty and probably like rained on and stuff, and it's all, the pages are all messed up. So I see it there, so I walk up to it and I'm just looking at it, and it's a copy of the New Testament, and the copy of the book was called The Invitation. So right away I'm like, okay, Lord, I got it. I got you. I know you're telling me. So automatically, after I see the invitation on the Bible, I turn around, forget about going to my car, and make my way back down the block, and I go up to the kid. And, I can't remember all the details of how it started, but basically I just presented to myself and said, hey, what's going on, man? And I just started saying, like, you're just hanging out here, where you're from. Turns out he's from New York, where I'm from. I tell him about dust, I give him the invitation, he sort of puts it in his pocket, doesn't read it right away because I'm telling him about it. Next thing I know, this kid's walk with me, and I'm just offering to just, hey, come with me, and you can hang out with me. I'll drive you, So we are next. The reason I'm saying next thing I know is that it's almost like I wasn't really being led by me, and I was being led by the Spirit, and then like I was there, but at the same time it all happened so fast in a flash this whole day, and it was just like so crazy to me afterwards. Anyway, his name was Sean. We're in the car, and he's telling me a story. Supposedly he's from New York, and he left 4 months ago and left his family and decided to move out to Charlotte to be with this girl that was his girlfriend. And after 4 months, just 3 days prior to me meeting him, he was kicked out on the streets by his girlfriend, and she found someone new, and he had no place to go, and no minutes on his phone, and he was holding his stomach. He hasn't eaten in 3 days. And, but he was also, it just seems so interesting because we were talking, and he had like a real nice head on his shoulders, like he told me he went to Columbia for 2 semesters, and that, and then he said to me, oh yeah, I was actually doing film editing, and he didn't know I did film. It's like, really? I'm like, I went to school for film. And we're talking, and it's just, everything seemed like it's just like, this is working out perfectly, Lord. This is exactly where you wanted me to be. This is exactly who you wanted me to give this invitation to, and this is awesome. So I said to him, I'm like, we got like 3 hours until the service is going to be starting, about with dust, and, I know, let's go get you some food. We'll sit down, we'll grab a bite. I'm like, my girlfriend Mary, we gotta meet up with her. So I drive 20 minutes out to around Mary's area. And obviously I know that I'm not going to go just bringing someone into Mary's home on my own, with her not knowing who it is, and that's just not, people, you don't want to do that, it's not safe. So we go to McDonald's, we're inside, we're sitting down, he decides to go use the bathroom. I just talk to Mary about what's going on, and how I found this kid named Sean, and how it seems like it's going really well, and I just want to help him out, and so she said, okay, well, I'll meet up with you later, and we'll just go to Dust together and do errands or whatever beforehand. So we're at McDonald's. I just got a drink. I let him get whatever he wanted. I paid for it. I've never seen someone eat food like this. So, he was really, really hungry. So we get in the car, and then he's telling me about how he has to get a pair of keys, how he has clothes that he left behind the garage back where I found him, and where I met him, and he didn't realize how far we were going, so he wanted to get back over there so he can get his clothes. I'm like, okay, that's cool, no problem. It's a good way to kill time anyway. And so we get back over there, and then I stop to get gas in the way, and then out of nowhere, then he says to me, oh, let me ask you something, man. He's like, let me ask one last favor. He said, if you can help me out with 10 or 20 bucks, there's this guy who's this Indian guy, this Arab guy in Charlotte who I bumped into in the streets. He has a motel right around that area where you met me, and he sort of said he cut me a deal, and like for 20 bucks or so, he would let me stay there in a room for a couple nights on the side, and he'd pocket the money. So, he's telling me this, and that's when I'm starting to just, who goes around picking up strangers and bringing them into their car? I mean, obviously, it's not even the safest thing to do in the first place, right? But, I knew I was being protected by that situation anyway with the Lord. And But I go get gas. I go I'm leaving in my car. I'm leaving my car. I'm not that concerned. I run to the gas station. I charge my car to come back out. I'm filling the gas. I knock on the passenger side door. I say, man, listen. I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but I just need to be honest with you. If you're just tell me that you're not messing with me right now. Tell me you're not screwing with me right now. You know, it's just. And he's just sort of laughing at me, and there's that awkward moment. He's giving me a look, and he's just like, nah, man. He's like, I don't even know where I would go, you know? And it's just sort of like, okay, cool. I'm just saying. I won't even bring it up again. Just tell me you're being cool and that you're not messing with me and we're good. And he said we were. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we get to the, I don't have any cash. We get to the motel. We find it after going up all these up and down streets with one-way streets and whatnot. So we get to the motel. I park in the lot, and I go in there with him, and there's this Indian couple who's running it, and they're just sort of like giving these like looks towards me and him, like maybe like they've even seen him before. And then I'm talking to him, and you know, and he's talking to me how he wants me to do it with cash and use the ATM. And this is where I start getting like, this is where I started like feeling more and more, okay, this isn't gonna work out the way I thought it was gonna work out, maybe. And so he's waiting outside. I'm grabbing the cash for him. He told me he went way outside so he wouldn't get the guy in trouble who was trying to help him out, in terms, as opposed to the guy being around the manager. There's only one guy on the shift. So without me confusing you guys at all, bottom line is I went out there and I had the cash with me, and I'm like telling him, wait a minute, I just don't understand what he's saying. He's like, nah, man, he's like, I need to do this, and I got to do it this way, so that guy, blah, blah, blah. And somewhere along the line, he started just like mixing up his story a little bit, and it just stopped making as much sense. And he like mixed up the people and stuff, and then it sort of just said, okay. So I just let it go, and I was just sort of, okay, well, what you want? What should I do, man? And then he says to me like, well, you can come in with me. He's like, or you can just go in the car. I'm like, I can just go in the car. And he's like, yeah, go in the car. I'll be right out there. I'm like, okay. So he offered me to go in with him to the motel, even to go in there and get the room. So I'm figuring like, seems pretty legit, right? Like, so. This is the motel that I park on this side. We walk through the building. We're on the other side. I walk around back to my car, and as I'm walking back to my car, he's going into the hotel. And so I'm thinking it's all good. I'm in there in the car for 10 minutes. After the first few minutes, 5 minutes or so, I'm just sort of praying to Jesus and just sort of saying, Jesus, I said, please just, you know, help Sean make the right decision. Let's just try to, you know, I just pray that Sean just knows that he's making right decisions for himself, and he's doing something, and he's you know, and that this is going to work out the way I thought it would. Remember exactly what I said, but you know, along those lines. 10 minutes pass. I figure out, okay, I'm going in there. I walk back into the motel lobby. I see this couple. I say to the couple, oh, have you seen my buddy? And they're like, no, like, he went that way. So, case is, I got screwed in the end. Well, you know, I got played by him, and he just sort of made it look like he was walking in, and he just left with the money and ran with it. So, you know, it was whatever. At the time, it's not whatever. I called Mary about it. I told her about the situation. And I was like, yeah, I got played. So I decided I'm going to go straight to the church. And like my instincts, I couldn't really express my feelings about the situation, but my instincts were right away like, okay, it's 5:30, church is at 7, I'm just going to go over to the church now, because there's people setting up, people hanging out, I need to be around those types of people, I need to be around my community and around my people. And I was really going there hoping like I'd find someone who would just like give me like a scripture or a word from after I told them my story, where they could say, yeah, well, you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, this says this, and like I was just looking for that, you know, that ministering, and so I just told the story to some people here and there, and something else. Church is about to start. I see my pastor, and I'm in the middle of telling this story to another girl, and then I say to him like, oh, you don't believe what happened to me today? And he's sort of like, no, Tim. He's like, listen, man, you know I can't do this right now because I'm in my zone. And it was funny. He's just like, you know, because you're going to tell a story, you tell your story, you tell them play by play, like I am right now. And he's like, and I love you for that, but I can't do it now. And I'm like, no, listen, 10 seconds. I'm like, basically, I gave an invitation to someone today, I fed him, I took him out, I got screwed over, I got robbed by him, you know, blah, blah. And he looks at me, and gives me this look, and he says, I'm gonna call you out today and give you a shout out in my sermon. I'm like, okay. So worship goes good. We're in the sermon. The sermon starts, and the pastor's speaking, and I'm very like focused on it, and I'm usually very in depth and focused on the sermon. I usually don't ever drift. And the moment that he referenced me in there, that moment, boom, the rest of the entire sermon, I lost track. I need to go back and re-listen to it now on the podcast because I can't really follow it. I couldn't follow it. My mind got so lost, and I started realizing things that I was more hurt by the situation with this guy named Sean that I met that day than I thought I was. I think it's when I was looking back on it, like I couldn't figure out my emotions to it, but I was just hurt in a way that was not like being hurt in any other way I've ever been hurt before. Not in a way by a girlfriend, by a family member. It was another level because I went out there, I bared myself in every way possible to this person. I stripped myself down. I told him about what I was up to, what I was doing in my life. I told him about the new job. I talked to him about my new community, my new life with Christ. We were bumping some really, really dope hip-hop in the whip, and he was feeling it. But like, I had this person in my car for like over an hour's time, driving with them around Charlotte. Like, when you're doing that, you're building somewhat of a connection with this person, the best of your ability. So it's just sort of like, after all that, and then bam, in a flash, the person was gone. And I remember I keep on thinking, there was 3 things I kept thinking early before the sermon. I wasn't angry. People always say that, sometimes like people can get upset and angry, and when things bad happen to them, they can be like either angry with the Lord, or they can be like, why me? What did I do wrong? How did I sin to deserve this? I don't get that way. I'm smarter than that. That's not what the Lord's heart is on. But I did. So I had a nice opinion about it, where I said, okay, it is what it is. I said, there's 3 things to be grateful for. 1, we talk about giving. How about, say for example, I'm a Christian and I'm trying to spread the love of Christ to you. I'm gonna give you a glass of water, and so you give your fellow man, your fellow woman, a glass of water. I gave him his glass of water. I fed him a whole meal, and he obviously needed it. 2, maybe he'll use $20, and maybe hopefully he uses the $20 for something that's productive and something that's going to help him. That's my second thing. And the third thing was, I should have been grateful that I was watched over and that everything went the way it did, because I took a stranger into my car, and a lot of times that could lead to a dangerous situation. I felt like I was fine doing it because I felt like I could tell, and I felt the kid out enough to know that he wasn't someone who was packing heat or anything. But, so I was grateful for that. But then the sermon, like I said, it just got me. And the one thing that I do remember, amongst my thoughts being all muddled and all that stuff, right, where he referenced it was the pastor was speaking about Mark chapter 2, in the beginning of it, and he says, it's right here, it's Jesus forgives and heals a paralytic. It says, and again he entered Capernaum after some days, and it was heard that he was in the house. Immediately many gathered together, so that there was no longer room to receive them, not even near the door. So the house is full. I'll talk about it afterwards. And he preached the word to them. Then they came to him, bringing a paralytic who was carried by 4 men. And when they could not come near him because of the crowd, they uncovered the roof where he was. So when they had broken through, they let down the bed on which the paralytic was lying. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven you." And some of the scribes were sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, "Why does this man speak blasphemies like this? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Silly Pharisees. Tricks are for kids. So you have this idea about, you have this small, I'm picturing this small little home, and Jesus just came back into town, and he's in there, and this place is filled to the brim. People are in there, full in there. He's healing, he's talking to people, he's healing people. You got people looking through all the windows and everything like that. And this is how it was sort of described to me by the pastor. But what's the key is, is that when Jesus saw the faith of the 4 men who brought and traveled with the paralytic all the way over to get them, carrying this man for miles probably to get to Jesus, just to get him healed. When that happened, Jesus heals the man. So Jesus doesn't say, the way he words it, he's not healing the man because of the man himself. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven you." So and then of course what ends up happening is that the paralytic is actually brought up and he loses his paralyzation. He's able to walk again. He walks out. Thanks, Jesus. So it feels good to play the role of being the person that carried the paralytic. And I mean, as I was speaking to Memphis Vinyl Jim about this, when I called him, he had some great things to say as well, but it's just, you just never know what could happen down the road. Months from now, days from now, years from now, decades from now, maybe end up that kid Sean will have a change of heart, and maybe I'll be the person that sticks out in his mind. Now, it's not in a selfish way. Maybe I won't, and that's fine too. I'm completely content in the situation. But I had these feelings during the sermon, after the sermon, where I needed to really speak to someone. I spoke to Mary about it. I called Jim about it. I just had these feelings where I was like hurt, and I just needed them to be resolved. And what was amazing is that the next day, the Lord granted me this way of sort of seeing things with a new set of eyes, because I was walking down the street to work the next day. And because of everything that happened, I usually take trade, again, like I said, from the car to work, and I walk down that street, and I decided to walk down walk down 5th again. And I thought to myself, man, if I saw him, what would I say? If I saw him, I probably would have just told him it was fine. That was my plan. My plan was, if I see him, to say, it's alright, man, just spend the money on something good, And I just remember on my way to work just having these feelings of of happiness about the whole situation, and just it's undescribable. The happiness that I received for being able to do something for this person, even though I ended up having that happen to me in the long run at the end. The next day, it was almost like a breath of fresh air that's really hard to describe of how it came about, but it did. So it ended up being something different, and I never told Jim about that the next day, but it was very interesting. I went to work just really feeling good about the situation. I just hope that on Sean's end that there's good things happening for him as well. That's the best thing I can hope for. I need to pray for him. I did pray for him since that happened. But yeah, I just wanted to share the story, for anybody, no matter religion, faith, background, who you are, it doesn't matter when it comes down to it. I mean, we all love doing, everyone should try to do their best to do good deeds for one another and do them selflessly. That's always a good thing for people to do for themselves, right? It always ends up leading to good things for people. And so, just because you go ahead and you decide to, break bread and provide money or bread or wine or something and give it to someone who is in need of it, you should know that it's not going to always necessarily work out the way that you want it. It's never going to work out the way where, it's not going to be about you, and it's not going to be, and the whole point of it should not be to fulfill and fill up your cup, but the point is filling up their cup. So if you can fill up their cup in the end, that's really what's most important. And then in the end of it all, I mean, in return, your cup will be filled. So, I hope you guys got something out of that. It was just a big moment for me. It's the first time I ever had something like that, where I had that type of experience and went on my way to do something like that for someone. And the way that the whole thing went down was very interesting and very, at the moment, and then afterwards, next couple of days, it sort of smoothed itself out and made a lot more sense to me. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. Thanks for listening. I know this is longer, and I'm not expecting to have so many views, because this isn't a music related video, and it's not probably for everyone, but I really think people can get some good things, so I just wanted to share the story. Love you all. Take care. Bye.